Okay, so I have a confession. I have never seen Seinfeld.
Okay, this podcast has been great. You have to go now. My guest today is Shoshana Gottlieb. Shoshana is a writer, content creator, and podcaster whose work has been featured in the Times of Israel, the Jerusalem Post, and Hey Alma. Shoshana also runs Jewish Memes Only, an Instagram account followed by thousands, where she both educates about Judaism and lightheartedly pokes fun at the quirks of Jewish life through the format of memes and pop culture. Shoshana, thanks for joining the podcast. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. You always make me so I sound so much more accomplished, I guess, when you put it like that. It doesn't feel like, I don't know, like when you list it all in a row, it sounds very official. It's just like I sit on my phone all day and tweet. You could just say that as an intro.
Well, yeah, you're undoing all of my hard.
I'm sorry.
All of my work.
You've done a great job. See, you're a great podcaster, man.
Yeah. Look, I realize sort of saying it, I'm like dissecting memes and just making them sound incredibly like scientific. Like she dissects the quirks. And
if you can send me the transcript after this, I'll put that on my resume because it sounds better than I could ever put it. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So look, let's start with the memes. Jewish Memes Only is your Instagram account where you take different aspects of Jewish culture and religious texts and you make memes out of them, which are both educational and hilarious. Now, for our listeners who may not be acquainted with memes, how would you describe them and how did you start this account?
So memes are basically like a recurring internet joke. So it's usually a picture or a video that you can then take and turn on its head and repurpose in other contexts and whatever it is. And you've definitely seen them on Facebook. Depending on your age, it has the little yellow minions in it. I don't know what your demographic is in terms of age. In terms of this podcast.
Those are mum memes for sure.
Yeah. If you're listening to this and you're over 50 and you're on Facebook, memes are the things with the little yellow guys on them. If you're under 50, I assume I don't have to explain what memes are. I'm going to get cancelled for being ageist. Oh my God, this is horrible. I started making them because, I don't know, I guess I reached a point where I realized that I could make them because I had the meme knowledge and I had the Jewish knowledge. And I just put those two things together. It was around Pesach, I'm pretty sure. It was the first huge amount that I made. And then my friends got really bored of me just posting them on Facebook or sending them individually. And they're like, you should make an Instagram. And I was like, okay, I'll make an Instagram where I can post everything. And then it literally has just spiraled out of my control.
It's bigger than... Yeah, it got too big now.
Yeah. I make a joke that as soon as I hit 20,000 followers, I'm just going to completely shut it down because I think that is possibly the funniest thing I could do. But I don't know. It's I call it a very public hobby. You know what I mean? I do it for fun. It keeps me busy. It's just a lot of people watching me do it.
How many memes do you upload to Instagram in a week, would you say?
It depends on the week. I used to do one a day, Monday to Friday. And now it's a bit less than that. But usually I try and hit the same. Yeah.
Yeah. What's your process?
My process. Oh my God. My process. I guess there's different things. I think there's the things about Judaism that I always have on a retainer. So one of the questions you asked, you brought up one of my Rothschild memes. So making fun of Jews having lots of wealth and, control, all of those ridiculous things, I think. like I can always easily hit on. So I've got like that retainer of Jewish stuff. And then I've got like the current events Jewish stuff that I also, if it's timely, I'll pull from. And then the meme stuff is just I follow a bunch of like Simpsons screen grabs pages on Instagram, or I follow like meme template pages. And then if something comes up like on the page that I can figure out a way to like finesse into it, sometimes it takes 20 seconds, other times it takes a few rounds of doing. But yeah, it involves a lot of scrolling. It's like just being perpetually online, I think, is really how you do it.
You touched upon one of your memes there, which involves the Rothschilds trope, and also it's what a fantastic meme. It combines The Simpsons with like three anti-Semitic tropes. I'm going to read out the text because I have it in front of me.
Sure.
It's the meme says, and I quote, "Me on my way home from my Elders of Zion meeting, having just received my weekly Rothschild stipend that I'm about to spend on media control." Now, this is great because you got like three things going on there. Yeah. You got the Elders of Zion, you got Rothschilds, and you got media control. Not what were you thinking when you made this, but what were you thinking? Like, how did you come up with this one in particular? And how did you combine it with Marge Simpson?
So that one was one of those ones where like I followed a bunch of Simpsons pages, and someone posted like that screen grab of her. It's like money coming out of her hair and like a bundle of cash. And I'm like, well, Jews, people say Jews have a lot of money, and people say that, Jews get money at these secret meetings. It's just like it's connecting the dots. I think like it was pretty easy to do. Yeah. I don't know. It's also like, you find the absurdity. Like I remember learning about like the Elders of Zion at school and being like, that's crazy. No one could ever believe that. And now it's like, you're in a YouTube comment section and people are like quoting it. And so like that,
yes,
it's horrible, but it's also like, it's a bit funny. So I think it's just that too, always thinking about it.
Yeah. Now I want to know what like some of the responses you've had. It's because for me, I think one of the reasons that memes are so popular, besides being like a fun, entertaining way to pass the time, is that like you said, they're essentially inside jokes for people across the world that they can understand. And if you're a part of a marginalized group, then they also serve as a means of providing unity and community with others in your group. But so like a Jew in Manchester can enjoy and relate to your memes in the same way as a Jew from Sydney. And, especially when it comes to memes concerning discrimination that this group might face, like antisemitism. So, I think they do a really good job of making Jews feel less alone, less afraid, and ultimately, like you say, allow them to laugh at the situation, which can make it feel less scary. So what have the response been from Jews to your memes?
I'd say like 95% of it is really good.
Nice.
Like, yeah, like surprising. Like, I don't know, I get people who try and explain my memes to me. Like I'll make a joke about something in the Torah or, a bit of Jewish history. And no offense to men. Men are amazing, but it's always a guy just like in my comments being like, oh, this is funny because, and then like explaining my joke to me. So like that stuff aside, the response has been people really excited. People are excited to like laugh at the things that can be ridiculous. Like I think it all comes from a place of love and reverence. And on top of that, I think a willingness to like concede that a lot of what we do is ridiculous when you think about it for a second too long. I think there have been moments where I've pushed the envelope a bit too far, and I think that like that just comes. We all have our different like places we draw the line when we make jokes and do comedy. So sometimes people get a bit angry, but I don't know. I think again, like minimal, like 1% of the time, maybe.
When you say angry, is it because, I mean, like we say, you make memes about Jewish texts, anti-Semitism, whatever. So are they angry because they might think that you're mocking something too holy to be mocked, or is it more that you're mocking something too grave or too serious, like with anti-Semitism?
Right. So I stay away from like serious anti-Semitism, right? Like I'm not going to make a joke about, a synagogue that's, been held hostage. I'm not going to make jokes. I don't make jokes about the Holocaust, but when you come to like anti-Semitic conspiracy theory at like a very, superficial level, like it's ridiculous, right? Before it becomes harmful, it's just insane. So like that's the stuff that I'm making fun of. But people, I think, have an issue when they think I don't have a right to make those jokes. And I think there's like this, I've had a really interesting dynamic a lot, that people just like don't think I'm in the in group almost. So it's like usually Orthodox people who don't think I'm Orthodox. I identify as modern Orthodox, but like they don't seem to see that. I don't know. I guess like I'm left leaning. I'm from Australia, so I don't, it's a very different type of modern Orthodox, I think, over here, or just like Judaism in general is its own flavor over here. And so, yeah, so I think people get a bit off put because they think I'm like on the outside making the joke when really I'm like firmly in the middle of it all.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're Chabad educated. I don't know if people know that, but you're Chabad educated, and you attended Kesser Torah College. Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you're clearly coming at it from a place of like, oh, I really like Judaism.
Oh, yeah, I love it. Yeah, I went to a Chabad school for 13 years. Um,
Right?
I call
And you still get
myself like,
guys being like, you don't know what you're talking about.
oh yeah, constantly. Like literally, because my family was never fully Chabad, but we were always Chabad adjacent. And by that I mean like, we didn't keep all of like the really hectic, minhagim and customs with stuff, but like we had a huge Rebbe portrait on the wall that my dad got once from
Right.
some like gala dinner. So
Very
yeah,
nice.
like we were very Chabad light, I'll say. And with that comes, I have this weird affiliation with a group who I'm actually not on the inside of, and so I won't make jokes about, Chabad Lubavitch because that's not for me to make.
Mm, mm. How do you think that your religious education has informed your view of Judaism and how you present your form of Judaism in the Jewish community to the outside world?
That's a fantastic question
Thank you.
that I think I'm constantly packing and unpacking about my Jewish education. I think that one thing I'm really grateful for my community and the school I grew up with and my family, um, is that I like Judaism isn't like one part of my life, right? It's not that I'm Jewish and I'm Australian and I'm this and I'm that. I think Judaism is like the lens within which I see the entire rest of the world. And that's something that my education really, drove home, at a Chabad school, where it's like everything you do is really, really Jewish. And everything's got that Jewish flavor to it, even when you're in English class, in terms of the things you do and don't watch because of their level of appropriateness.
Yeah.
And I think when you're a kid, like it's really hard because you just sort of want to feel normal, especially when you see kids at like less religious schools or at like non-Jewish schools. But the older I get, I think the more I realize that that's what's like really grounded me in my identity, and I really do appreciate it.
Mm. Are you when you're putting out memes to Instagram and stuff, would you say that the Jewish people responding tend to come from a particular denomination, or is it just across the board?
It's fully across the board. Like in terms of the demographics that Instagram like lets me see, I can tell you that it's a majority Americans from New York. It's also a majority like women from New York. Um, but in terms of like the people I interact with, it's literally everyone from like really, really from people who I happen to know to people who are like completely unaffiliated and just want to find the jokes funny, and so put in the effort of Googling things and asking questions. And I think that's really fun because it becomes a little learning opportunity, you know, like you come for the laughs and then you get to learn a bit of Torah while you're at it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. Now we've spoken a bit about the response from the Jewish community. I want to know what the response has been from people who aren't Jewish. Has it been positive or negative? Has there been any anti-Semitism in response to any of your memes?
Right. So I'll say like I get two types of non-Jewish people following me, or not. Like, there's one type who follow me, and that is either people with like really close Jewish friends who happen, you know, to find it funny, or their friends send them some things, or like they're friends of mine from university and aren't Jewish, and I made them follow me. And there are some people who follow for like who are Christians and follow for the Bible jokes and stuff.
Nice.
But as for like anti-Semitism, I have a zero tolerance. Like every so often, like once in a blue moon, someone will comment something on a post, and I just like, the internet for me is a fun place. Like, I don't come on to fight battles, and I don't come on to like, I don't know, try and talk down people who are losers and literally spend their time finding Jewish creators to then like, you know, Hitler was right in my comments. Oh, you got me. Like, I don't know. Like, I report them to Instagram because I don't think they should have a platform. I block them. I delete their comment, and I continue on my way. And my internet experience is like infinitely happier for it. There was one time on Twitter, like someone was creating lists of Jews. Like, that was really crazy. Like, it was like
lists of Jews,
lists for the next gas chamber thing. Like, it was really bad, and it was like me and a bunch of other Jews on Twitter, and so like that was a bit concerning, I guess.
Wow.
But this is the type of stuff I don't tell my mum, you know, like this is the stuff like that worries people. But for the most part, it's just like, I don't know. Yeah. Like, I think there are some people you can push back on in terms of like when they say anti-Semitic things, but when it's people who literally just come in to purposefully annoy you, what's the point? Like fighting, like, you know, they just want to get a rise out of me. I'm not going to give them that. I'm going to spend my time, and I could be watching The Simpsons, you know. I've got so many other things to do.
Like, in terms of like self-care and mental health, and you have a choice between like responding to someone saying Hitler was right or just watching The Simpsons or Seinfeld or something, it's not a hard choice.
100%. Okay, so I have a confession. I have never seen Seinfeld.
Okay, this podcast has been great. You have to go now.
Yeah, I am actually anti-Semitic too. No,
oh my God.
It's really bad. It's really bad. I'm sorry. I know I should watch it. It's on my list to watch. Other things come first.
I mean, look, like so you really need to watch Seinfeld. I know this is about anti-Semitism, this podcast, so I'm going to derail it for like a good 30 minutes.
I've already been cancelled. It's fine.
This is your second cancellation from the Jewish community now.
I know.
Seinfeld is you need to watch it as a Jew, but also as a meme creator, because the meme potential, like I look at a lot of Seinfeld meme pages in my spare time. That's what I do. And they're fantastic. They're like as good as the Simpsons ones.
So I do follow Seinfeld meme pages because they're really funny. I just have absolutely no inclination to watch the show because I'm like, look, the soup Nazi, I get it. Like, Jerry Seinfeld, like, I get it. B-movie guy, hilarious. Like, Kramer, I'm like, I feel like I've watched it through osmosis of the zeitgeist in general. You know what I mean?
I do, but I gotta say,
one day I'll get there.
The fact you follow the Seinfeld meme page without having seen the show makes me uncomfortable in a way I can't really describe.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you know what?
Do you watch Curb?
No, I'm sorry.
You don't watch Curb? Okay, this has been great, Shoshana.
Look, again, it's one of those things. It's everywhere all the time.
Yeah.
Like, even if I don't watch it, I feel like I fundamentally understand it. And
Yes.
especially with Curbed, I feel like a lot of it is, just feeling uncomfortable with Larry David in situations, and I already feel uncomfortable all the time and have enough Larry Davids in my life. Like, do I need another one?
Probably not. Probably
I don't
not.
know. Probably not. Look, I'll get there. I think it could be good content. It'll be like Shoshana watches Seinfeld for the first time, and I'll get a
Yeah.
million views.
Yeah. I will be at
It's all
least
into
5 of those
this.
views. Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, let's talk about pop culture for a second, because as well as memes, you write articles. You have your own podcast called Pop Culture Parasha, which I listened to the
Yes.
Simpsons episode because I'm a big Simpsons fan. I thought it was excellent, and for any Simpsons fans out there, for any Simpsons fans and people who are fans of Judaism, I recommend it. You paired,
Thank you.
you
All
did the
5 of you.
Simpsons. Oh, yeah. You did the episode where it's the Simpsons portrayal of Bereshit, where they tell the story of the Garden of Eden. I thought that was really good. And your other episodes include the pairings of Emor and When Harry Met Sally, which is one of my favorite films, and Vayakel and Toy Story 3. And this is a really great way of teaching people Torah in like a fun, accessible way. And I think it's really good if you're Jewish, but you don't really know that much about the text, but you actually want to learn more. How was the podcast created, and what is it about pop culture and religious education that pairs so well?
So I was at Pardes for 2 years in Jerusalem studying, and I met someone there named Valerie, and we became friends. And we joked all the time that we should have a podcast because we both love to talk, and we both really, love pop culture, and we were studying Torah for 2 years. And then I think the beginning of the last Parsha cycle, so like this just past Bereshit, we were like this could work, right? We can talk about both things. This is an opportunity to actually sit down and learn the Parsha every week and not just drop off, because we have this standing commitment to each other to learn it like an almost chavrota style. And that's how it was born. And we just started doing it. We'd borrow Pardes, like they had a bunch of microphones and recording equipment, and we set it up, and it was really just like a slapdash of it. But I don't know, like it's really fun. And I've also forgotten the second part of the question that came after, like how was it born?
So the second part was, why do you think pop culture and religious education, both in meme format or podcast format, they do mesh really well?
Right. So I think that like the thing with Torah is that we know that it's eternal, if you subscribe to that belief that, it's something that you can learn from constantly and be growing with. But at the same time, it can be really inaccessible because it's written in an ancient language. And if you didn't go to school for it, you're relying on translations and all of that stuff. And this was a way to make it more relevant, I think, and an easy access point because we all watch movies and TV. And I also think that like it is eternal, right? The themes that come out in the stories and the characters are like themes that just have carried on throughout history and other literature. And I love the Torah for the same reason I love When Harry Met Sally, because it's got great stories. And not many people know this, but Moshe Rabbeinu is wearing a turtleneck the entire time, like Billy Crystal does in When Harry Met Sally. I'm just like, sorry, that was the dumbest joke. I don't know. It's just like, it's an extension of, you enjoy stories because the way that you interpret them, I think, tells you how you view the world in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And the things we take away from them, I think you can learn a lot about yourself. And that's the types of movies you like. And that's what you take away from Tanakh and Torah in general. And I like those things for the same reasons. And I think that there's always things to compare. Sometimes it's really tenuous, I will say. Like, when you're like knee deep in all of those parshiot that are about like, like the, I don't know, like korbanot, like the offerings that you give, and it's like the really minute detail of like 10 ounces of flour and like one
Yeah.
kid goat and this and that. And you're like, okay, so how could we connect this to a bug's life? Like, it's always really just like, sometimes they're amazing. Sometimes the comparisons are like, I feel like by the end of it, I'm like, I'm a genius. And a lot of the times I'm like, okay, that was a stretch, but it works. And it's
Yes.
worked so far. So far, so good.
If you end up watching Seinfeld, you have to let me know which parasha you pair it to, because I'll listen to that one in a heartbeat.
So this might be confidential, I don't know, but also like Valerie's not here to stop me. We're thinking about what to do for like our second season, because we could just like go around, and do the same stories again and choose different movies. But I think we're going to branch out into like Tanakh, and really famous stories from sort of later on, and find things for those. So I think that like, I don't know, like off the top of my head, I think that Seinfeld would be really good with like with Daniel, because he's got like three mates who just hang around with him, and he's a bit snarky sometimes. But that's like off the top. If you had to like gun to my head right now, who would I compare Seinfeld to? It would be Daniel. Yeah.
I think Daniel's a bit too heroic for Seinfeld. Seinfeld's a massive coward.
Interesting.
At the end of the day.
I wouldn't know. I've never seen it.
There we go. I think we're going to have to sort out some sort of Seinfeld viewing sesh.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, look, in addition to being a podcaster and an internationally celebrated memer, you are also a writer, and you're a fan of pop culture and film, and you write about these things as well as Torah and Jewish culture. And in one of your articles for Hey Alma, you question whether the 2000 film Chicken Run is an allegory for the Holocaust. And while the article is written in a funny way, you do point out some very eerie similarities between the two. And I'm going to quote you again. In the article, you write, Chicken Run is a silly, funny movie that isn't going to teach anybody about the actual history of the Holocaust. But as a future educator, I can't help but see it as some remarkable tool to introduce young students to ideas such as concentration camps, armed resistance in the Holocaust, and a certain kind of yearning for freedom that feels so integral to the Jewish people. Can you elaborate on this? Because I thought it was a really interesting comparison.
Right. So I think that I was actually thinking about that the other day, mostly because the screenwriter of Chicken Run read that article and was like, it's not about the Holocaust. And so then I had to explain to him that people interpret things in different ways and can glean understanding in ways that weren't intended by the writer.
Right.
Yeah, I think that like, it's just, I say with a bit of jest that I survived the Jewish education system, right? Like there's a lot of things that I think are wrong with it. And one of the things I think that can be wildly improved on is Holocaust education. As someone who experienced 13 years of it, as someone who is the grandchild of survivors, as someone who like lives with that every single day, I think that so much of our education is about like traumatizing kids into caring about the Holocaust. And it doesn't have to be like that, right? I don't have to be scarred for life by my history classes. And if there is something like, I think movies are a really serious business, and something as silly and goofy as Chicken Run has really scary imagery and has, important messages to send. And, if we can draw those comparisons using a film that is geared towards children, like use the thing that's geared towards children to teach them something really that we think is really important to teach them, right? Like, I guess use the tools that are at our disposal to make them understand, because I think we all agree that there has to be this level of understanding. But, like wait till they're older to bring in the heavy stuff,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I do like how you use the article as sort of as a vehicle to ask these questions about Holocaust education. I mean, in the article you say,
right,
teaching the next generations about the Holocaust in a real, non-scarring way that will equip them with information, compassion, and ownership over our people's history. That's how it should be. I mean, what does your vision of Holocaust education look like? And as it currently is, how could we improve it?
Look, I don't think I have like a 5-step plan on it. I've barely got my teaching qualifications. I think it's just more, I think of the things that I have been through as a student and how I don't think, like, I remember my Poland trip when I was on my gap year and just like the emotional manipulation that I was put through, right? Like this guy walking around with a little speaker on his belt playing sad music as we're walking through forests, and
Oh, no.
you're standing in, like amongst mass graves, and it's at that moment they like pull out a letter from your mum and hand it to you and make you read it, like next to the children's graves, and I'm like, this stuff's insane, right? Like that's not what it should be.
Yeah.
Like I'm traumatized enough from these images of dead bodies and
Yeah.
going to Yad Vashem when I was too young. I don't need like that level of manipulation alongside it. So like I think at the moment I can tell you like an infinite number of things that are wrong, what I think is wrong with Holocaust education, but I am not an expert in how to fix that. And there are experts who are working towards that, right? Like Yad Vashem has a huge educational department. I know there's like a good friend of mine works in Holocaust education in Europe, and there's like scores of people who are like living in Europe now as modern Jews and who work in Holocaust education and are doing a really good job of it. So yeah, I think we should start listening to the experts and not just traumatizing children.
That's good advice, I think. I think that's...
Just you can even take the Holocaust out of it. Just don't traumatize kids, full stop.
Yeah.
And like I think that's great education advice. Yeah,
that's a good quote. Don't traumatize kids. Shoshana Gottlieb, 2022. Vote for me.
When I run for Prime Minister of Australia, that'll be my slogan.
Something everyone can get on board with, I think. Now, in another thing that you've written about that you seem to be quite passionate about is the representation of Jews in the media. In a featured article that you wrote for the Times of Israel, you draw attention to the rather disturbing portrayal of Hasidic Jews in television, specifically the genre of medical dramas, which is apparently a trend that is going unnoticed. I mean, I didn't notice it. The article begins by looking at a scene from the Canadian drama Nurses, where a Hasidic Jewish patient refuses a bone graft because doctors would have harvested it from the body of a deceased donor who is not Jewish, which, as you point out, does not contravene Jewish law in any way. The scene went viral at the time, and lots of people found the portrayal to be anti-Semitic, and the episode was subsequently removed from its online platform, and the program's original producers issued an apology. But you also go on to list a number of other medical dramas that also present problematic portrayals of religious Jews, including the programs House, Private Practice, and Grey's Anatomy. I did not realize this was a trend. Why do you think there are so many negative portrayals of Hasidic Jews on television? And why do you think that this type of anti-Semitism generally goes unchecked?
I think, so I'll say for the most part, I don't think it's like an insidious plot or anything. I think that medical dramas, are usually really long seasons, right? So you have like 20 episodes in a season, at least for Grey's Anatomy, and that's been going on for like 19 seasons now. And you try and find things that, writers think are exotic, right? Or things that like sort of go against the cultural norm. And it's not just Hasidic Jews that get targeted by it, but like every single episode, or like every single, TV show that you've just mentioned also for sure have an episode that includes like Mormons, or, I know that Grey's Anatomy definitely has episodes with like Shinto Buddhism and different like, Eastern religions and things like that. So I don't think it's like just a Hasidic issue. I think it's just, we look like these writers are looking for things that they find interesting, exotic, different, whatever, and it just so happens that Hasidim bear the brunt of that a lot of the time. I think that the nurses episode was horrific because like that crossed the line of not only is it just it would never happen, because like a lot of those shows are, you know, it would never happen, but with this one as well, it was also, you know, racism that, you know, whether it exists in that community or not, you know, just is reinforcing a horrible stereotype and also touching on, you know, really sensitive cultural issues like, you know, how Arabs and Jews interact in the world. Like, I don't know, it felt unnecessary. Um, but yeah, I think that it's just like an unfortunate byproduct of the need to be churning out stories at such a high rate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you think that you know, writers should kind of accurately portray a Jewish character if they want to? Does it involve approaching Jewish people? Does it involve actually like spending time with Jewish people? Does it involve just like not going to the first stereotype you think of?
Right. So I think that like this has been a huge issue in like across the board in terms of Jewish representation, and there was a really great article in Time magazine by a writer, I think her name's Sarah Seltzer, a Jewish woman, who writes about cultural literacy and who we are willing to forgive. She's mostly writing about like people who are not Jewish portraying Jews on screen, but I think that the cultural literacy thing applies in a writer's room as well, right? Like if you have no idea like the type of community you're trying to write about, you shouldn't be writing about it unless you've done extensive research, unless there's someone sitting with you who can tell you what's right and wrong. Like I don't care if a Jew writes about, or if a non-Jew, sorry, writes about a Jewish issue, if they're, you know, engaged in the community or have friends or like have a really deep understanding of it. It just so happens that most of the time they don't. And I think that also implies like within the Jewish community as well, right? Like plenty of Jewish people have no idea what it's like to grow up in a Hasidic household. Hasidic people don't know what it's like to grow up in a Reform household unless you have those, you know, like that really intimate knowledge of those spaces. You're not going to write successful stories because they're going to be bogus. They're not going to have any truth to them.
Yeah, I completely agree. Now, before we sort of wrap up, I first of all want to thank you for giving us your time. I'm going to ask you something which is what I ask all of my guests, and people answer it in very different ways, which is for those, when are you going to watch Seinfeld? No, that's not the question. For those looking to, for those looking to sort of help in the fight against anti-Semitism in any way, and they might not know where to start. They may not even be Jewish, but they just want to do something. They want to help their Jewish friends and neighbors, whatever. Where do you recommend that they start?
I think they should ask their friends where to start, right? I think that a lot of the times when something's going on in the world that affects Jews in a really horrible way, you know, it feels nice when people reach out and sort of say, is there a way I can help you? How can I get more educated? And you can direct them. I think that I'm from, like, you know, I live in Australia, so the places that I send people might be different in terms of like what's happening with Australian Jewry. I don't really know what happens in a lot of other places and where to send them for that. Look, if you want some Jewish jokes though, Jewish memes only.
Yes,
there's plenty of people on Instagram who like post interesting things all the time. I don't know, like ask your friends, do a bit of Googling. Yeah, that's all I got to say, I think.
that's all you need to say, I think. So tell the listeners, what have you got coming up or going on, and where can people find you?
Okay, so I have just returned to Australia, so I don't have a lot going on other than my new job.
Nice.
You can find me at Jewish Memes Only on Instagram, all one word. On Twitter, I'm The Tonight Show with no W at the end, just like The Tonight, SHL. And what's coming up next? I'm Pop Culture Parasha. We do it every week. We're recording tomorrow. I'm doing some personal. Look, if you want to finance me writing a movie or a book, hit me up. DM me. I am not above blood money. I will take it if It means I can write full time. Yeah, I got plenty of ideas. I do lots of my own writing on the side that not people don't really see. And eventually, one day, please God, something will come of it. But who knows?
Nice. I'm sure it will. Shoshana, thank you so much for giving us your time and coming on Podcast Against Antisemitism.
Thank you. I hope I've lived up to the Chief Rabbi of Poland and the high caliber that he set for me.
Yes, you absolutely have. You absolutely have.
Good.
Thank
It's
you
all
so
I've ever
much.
wanted. Thank you.